Welcome everyone, stealthyshiroean here, and I'm back with another devlog. It's been a while since I made one of these, and I felt it was high time to provide an update on where I am. So let's get into it. And currently, I'm still working on Sleep Tight Little One, which, if you haven't seen the last couple videos, Sleep Tight is a top-down 2D action game where the player plays as a little girl traversing a nightmare in search of her stolen teddy bear. The gameplay has no combat, but instead has the players clear levels through careful timing of enemy patrols and quick reflexes in tense situations. Originally, I had planned for this to be about 3 months or so of development, but unfortunately, I grossly underestimated how long it would take me. And while this is a bit of a downer, it's also completely expected. Many game devs suggest that your target goals are often going to be too lofty, even if you think you have counted for scope and your own skills. Also, since I've never built something this large before, albeit it is still a fairly small game, I didn't quite know what I could or couldn't do in this time. Finally, life gets in the way sometimes and there's just not enough time, or other things take priority, so these things all need to get factored into estimates in the future for me. That said, I think I'm nearing a playable build of the game for anyone interested. Originally, I wanted to create a rough build of the game and put it out there for feedback on the gameplay. And while I know this might be the smarter option, I decided to, instead, create something that is more complete, like a demo. For my own sake, I wanted the game to have prettier menus, music and sound, animations, etc. Something to make it feel more like a game rather than just another project, if that makes any sense. As far as what I have so far, well, good news. I have the first 8 levels completed. And I guess I use that word loosely, but for the sake of giving them a status, they're complete. I imagine there might be some changes I make to them, but hopefully it's just minor. Although much of my time spent has been making levels in Level Designer Toolkit, and then adding the other things within the Unity editor. I definitely didn't anticipate just how much time it would take for me to build these levels, especially the forest levels. Partially, this is because of my own lack of adequate knowledge working with LDtk. I know that it has an auto-tiling system where you can set up rules for tile placement, which can make the process a lot easier. However, I didn't want to disrupt my workflow too much, so I decided against trying to figure it out. Maybe another game that only uses one simple tile set, then I'll try my hand at it. Furthermore, my layers could be ordered differently, which would have made things a bit easier. I definitely didn't think it through, which caused me some issues, resulting in extra steps and redoing levels because of that. Although, a side note related to LDtk, I figured out how to add custom physics shapes to tiles. To be honest, I couldn't tell you all that a custom physics shape is used for. For my purposes though, I used it to create a slanted collider on tiles I was using for walls. This way, the player doesn't feel cheated when they think they should be able to move into a certain place, only to find the whole tile is covered by a square collider. Anyway, Unity has this built in, but I couldn't quite figure out how to create them in conjunction with LDtk. With an explanation from Kamen, the creator of the LDtk importer to Unity, I was able to create them in my own game. So thanks, Kamen, if for some reason you found this video. But the other reason the level designing took so long comes from my own inexperience with it. I tried to build out levels in smaller chunks that I thought of as encounters. I tried to make each one unique, but it was difficult coming up with different ideas for each one. I'm a bit afraid that many of them feel too similar, which, tied together with the simplistic gameplay, might hurt the enjoyment of the game. I suppose playing other games similar to this might have given me ideas for level layouts, but I wasn't quite sure what games are like what I was creating. Outside of creating the level layouts, I also added in 2 new enemies. Before this, I only had a patrolling ghost and one that would chase the player. I've since added a dog, which chases the player down in a straight line when the player steps into their line of sight, and I added an invisible enemy that patrols and only shows up when lightning strikes. I was particularly happy with that one because I wasn't sure if I could code that or not. Also, I wanted a way for the player to recognize that a new enemy was something to watch out for without telling them directly through some sort of tutorial text. So using Cinemachine, I created a separate camera that is centered on the new enemy, and it pans to when the player steps into a trigger for it. Originally I didn't have this and felt that it would be a cheap death for the player to be suddenly surprised. This way, I'm hoping it acts as a warning to the player to watch out and not die right away in order to learn what that particular unique feature the enemy has. Lastly, I also dabbled with the 2D lighting system in URP, or Universal Render Pipeline. I had planned to use the volume profiles with URP and mess around with the overrides to create darker environments. I did that for the forest, but I knew that I would need to figure out lighting eventually for the cave levels I'd like to make. Honestly, I thought this might be too difficult and was planning on cutting that entire stage for the sake of reducing scope and getting this done quicker. However, I decided to do a YouTube search and, of course, who would I find talking about it but Brackeys himself. His video was a bit outdated, but after a bit of searching I found what I needed to get 2D lights working in my own game, and I am so glad that I did. It's such a large tonal shift from what I had before, and I think it adds a lot to the feel of the game. I also added shadows for the player, which was pretty easy to do as well, and I think is a nice subtle effect. I especially like the glowing effect I gave to the mushrooms in the forest levels. And that about wraps up this devlog. As mentioned, if you're interested in trying out my little creation, then I definitely plan on making some sort of video to announce it, so keep a lookout for that. Alternatively, you could follow me on Twitter at stealthyshiroean, and or follow me on itch.io. All my links can be found in the description. As always, let me know if you're following a similar journey or whatever it is you guys might be working on, game dev or otherwise. If this helped you in some small way, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.